With nursing homes, there's many different options here in Waco. There's plenty, and together we could go and do some research and kind of see which nursing home here would best suit your mother with her condition and what would care for her the most and take care of that. With payment wise, I know that we would have to assess your mother's assets, and I know there's different requirements needed to meet to be placed into a nursing home. So together we could pick out maybe our top 3 nursing homes and see their different requirements and see if your mother meets those requirements and see about what we could do to get her put into a nursing home. And if your brothers weren't all on board with that, there are still other options. A nursing home's not an end-all.
That was kind of one of my questions. So we can actually visit nursing homes. They allow that?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't really know anything about this. So if we can visit, several of them, and help make up our mind of what to do, that would be very helpful. If there's someone who can guide us money-wise of what we do, because she and my father worked all their lives for what money they have, and I understand that you have to pay for things. I don't want to be paying and have the person in the next room hiding their money and them not paying.
Yes.
I want it to be fair.
Yes.
And then another concern there that I guess we'll have to work through possibly is who makes that decision. If we do decide to go the nursing home route, who makes that decision? My oldest brother has, I think you call it a medical power of attorney.
Okay.
And like he has that, and he can sign our checks and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So would he be the one to sign papers and make that decision, or would I be the one? Would he do it?
Well, I think since all of y'all are siblings, it'd be good to have a joint agreement. But I think it is also good to have kind of a one person who takes care of
I guess
signing
I'd have
the
to be,
papers and stuff like that. And so if he is already in charge of signing what checks of hers, it's probably best just to leave him in control of it. But in terms of what your next step is to do with her, I think it's best to have everyone be on board and agree with the nursing home. So if your brothers want to come and take a tour and we all look into it together,
that would be good.
You and I can do the initial research and kind of pick out the top 3 and then present that to them maybe and see which ones they think, because I'm sure all of y'all, you want your mother's best interest at heart.
Yes.
And so if y'all decide to go the nursing home route, it'd be good to have everyone on board, so then someone doesn't try and back out and pull your mother out of the nursing home. Y'all have already
that's a real concern of mine, is that someone might try to do that.
Yes. And so, and if for whatever reason we do research and it's decided that nursing home is just not what you want to do, there are other options, of course. You could have an in-home nurse come in certain days of the week and for certain hours and maybe do the things that you can't do for your mother. Like if you need help bathing her, or sometimes they cook, and just different things that you physically can't do, they can come in and help. And I know also there's Meals on Wheels here in Waco that helps with both meals and transportation for disabled, the disabled elderly, and so they could also be potentially there to help, because you are retired. So is it difficult for you to also support both you and your mother?
Oh yes. So what you said a second ago about the transportation, so that actually is an issue. So they, like when my mother needs to go to the doctor, they can come and pick her up and help me get her there. And the reason that's an issue, I have a vehicle, but I can't, she's in a wheelchair. I can't lift her and put her in the
car.
vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So something like that would be a really big help.
Good.
So she has a number of doctor appointments because she's an older person. She's almost 94, and so that would be a big help if we could have somebody, just to help me physically to get her places when she needs to go.
Yes.
Because I didn't realize that was even an option.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, it's fine. So I was just basically saying that besides the nursing home, there are other options, and with like Meals and Wheels with transportation, that would of course be beneficial to you.
Oh yeah.
And even an in-home nurse coming in and helping if, say, you did not want to take your mother from her home and what she's accustomed to. That's definitely an option. It would take some of the pressure off of you. And once again with that, we could look into your mother's assets and discuss with your brothers ways to pay and take care of everything.
Okay.
So it's not all just on you. But otherwise, those are several different options, and I think it'd be great to talk to your brothers about it and see what they would be open to. And I know it's difficult because
it's
you're
very,
the one.
Yeah, it's very difficult because I'm already at my wit's end because it's a 24/7 job, and then when you get different people, and I'm not saying we fight, but we don't exactly agree either, and that makes it even worse.
Yes. With your mother's condition, how bad is she right now with her Alzheimer's?
She's to me, she's very bad because she's my mother, and I'm used to her, the person she used to be. But now she's gotten to the point where, she still knows who I am.
Okay, good.
And, but she doesn't have, I guess, short-term memory. Like, I fix her breakfast every morning, and then later on she'll say, "What time are we going to have breakfast?"
Oh.
Or I'll tell her something, she'll ask me a question, and I tell her, and 5 minutes later, she'll ask me the same question. So finally, she's caught on, honestly, that she does that. She doesn't do it on purpose, of course, but she can't remember what she's done. And I think it embarrasses her, so I need someone who can either talk to her or tell me what to do, because her state of mind, is very important, not just her physical, taking care of her, but she knows that she's not what she used to be as far as her mental part goes, and so it kind of embarrasses her when she has to keep asking questions or when she doesn't remember what something is.
Yeah.
And to me, it does appear that she's getting worse. Not rapidly, but more than a couple months ago, I would say. So that's an issue. I don't know, when do I call the doctor and talk to him about that? I need somebody with some kind of expertise there who can guide me and let me know, yeah, you need to get this checked out to see if there's something else we can do, or is it just the way it is.
And even with her mind deteriorating a little bit like that, I'm sure it's very distressing to her, because
it is, yeah.
If she's asking questions, and she's a person, she can pick up on social cues. I'm sure she can tell if, like, it may frustrate you sometimes being asked the same question every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And answering, and so I imagine it's both frustrating for you and your mother. And do your brothers realize how bad she is, since they aren't around as often?
I don't think so, not really. Sometimes she has had several episodes where she's really bad and just is like out of her head. We had one episode a couple of months back where she asked me about my father, where he was. Well, he's been deceased for almost 10 years. And I hate to tell her that, because it's like he's died all over again. She's just now hearing that news for the first time. So she asked about him, and I just kind of changed the subject and didn't exactly tell her anything. Well, then a few minutes later, she's telling me that he ran off to California. They don't live in California. He's, like I said, my dad's deceased, But in her mind, she was living in a different time and a different circumstances that, as far as I know, never happened. And she was telling me she was, quite upset that he had run off to California, and she didn't know what she was going to do, and she hadn't told the family, and was going on and on. Well, I mean, and this went on for quite a long time. And later on, she said something to me about getting home and fixing supper for Bill. Well, Bill is my uncle. So it finally occurred to me that at that point she thought I was her sister, and or sister-in-law, honestly, who's also deceased. So all this time I'm thinking she's talking to me, and I'm thinking, wow, Mom never normally wouldn't talk that openly. To me, I'm her child. And then it turns out she thinks I'm her sister-in-law, which, honestly, it broke my heart. It's very, very difficult because I thought, well, this is it. She's gone.
Yeah.
But then the next day, she was back to her, still having issues, but more of her normal self.
And she recalled who you were in that moment?
Yeah, she knew who I was. She didn't say anything about what she thought about my father and all the things that she told me the day before, so it's like that didn't happen in her mind,
How do you deal with her going back and forth? Have you grown to accept it, or can it still get to you?
I think both. I think I somewhat accept it because I know there's nothing I can do to it. It still does get to me because you don't want anybody to be like that. And quite honestly, that was one of my mother's fears, is because her mother, when she got older and shortly before she passed away, she had some of the same issues, didn't know who people were, and would call, like, I know one time when my mother went to visit my grandmother, her mother, and she was in a nursing home, and my grandmother was calling out for my daughter, for JJ, but JJ wasn't there, and they were somewhat close because my mother kept my kids for me while I worked lots of times, so she would go visit, and she was sort of out of her head, my grandmother, and ever since then, my mother, that's kind of been her fear, is that she doesn't get like that. I think that's why it bothers me so much, is because I know that's what she didn't want to happen. But I've talked to my brothers about it, and what we've sort of come to a consensus and realized is that unless she's thinking sad things, that maybe it's a blessing that she thinks she's in another happier time. She'll tell me, like, well, when I drove the car the other day, I forgot to turn my lights on until it was almost dark. Well, she hasn't driven in 27 years. So in a way, it's a blessing that she thinks she thinks she is still doing these things. So that's the way I have to look at it, and I tell myself that every time she goes off talking about something that's not really real in the real world, that's just her mind's way of coping and keeping her kind of happy, I guess.
I think that's a wonderful, positive way to look at things. I know it can be easy to focus on the negative and see what has been lost, but I think that's great that you try and look for the positive in it and consider that maybe it is better and she's in a happier time. So she's not worrying as much.
That's it, and she's a big worrier. So
anxiety is running through your family.
Yes, very much so.
Do you fear that you also have the same condition?
I do. It's a big fear of mine, and it's something that honestly I have talked to my grandkids about it, and my daughter, and my son, and let them know that I don't want to be in that position. I definitely don't want to be kept alive on a machine and that kind of thing, and my mother doesn't either. We talked to her about that before she when she still had better mental faculties.
That's good.
And talked with her doctor about that too. But that is one of my issues or fears, I guess you would say, is that I don't want to be a burden on anyone.
Yes.
because, and I'm not saying my mother's a burden,